make sure to follow us on Instagram at Whistlethrowers. It's a great way to interact with our show. Our DMs are always open for questions, topic discussions, and more. You will be able to find our new episodes and other announcements there.
You are tuning into the Whistlethrowers podcast hosted by Jack Mubarak,
Jack Slaymaker,
and Aiden Tiksinski.
So this is a long time in the making. We're actually out in a tent in the rain right now, so shit happens. We made it work. So we got a lot of stories coming up. The first, we're going to talk about NFL season's coming up under 50 days. What do you guys think the biggest story around camp is going to be?
So the biggest headline that I think going into training camp has to center around the team that made it to the NFC Championship was an interception away from going. Unfortunately, they dropped it. I'm going to go with the 49ers. It's just everything surrounding. The two biggest stories has to be Deebo Samuel is right now in a contract dispute with the 49ers. He's at the end of a 4-year, $7 million contract, which is a little bit undervalued for someone that the 49ers relied on a lot last year. He had 1,405 receiving yards and 365 rushing yards and 14 total TDs. So he's basically the center point of the 49ers offense. The fact that they haven't come to a new contract with him is a big problem because they don't really have too much depth underneath that. Yes, you have Mozart, you have George Kittle, you have a couple other wide receivers as well, but your main focus point at this point is Deebo Samuel. So they're going to have to get that figured out, especially because now they have officially decided they're moving on from their longtime starting quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, and going with a pretty unproven second-year quarterback in Trey Lance. Yes, Trey did very well in college, but he also played for North Dakota State, and as many Eagles fans know, the last quarterback to come out of North Dakota State really was not as successful as people thought he would be. So Trey Lance in his 2 games he started last year, 5 TDs, 2 interceptions, 49ers at 1-1. It's, again, a very small sample size, so I think that the training camp will very much be focused on how Trey Lance is developing with this offense, but the offense really won't be full until they come to this contract negotiation with Samuel. So I'm very interested to see what happens with the 49ers this offseason.
I just got a note that an hour ago they did re-sign him to a 3-year, $73.5 million deal. So that really seals the deal for them.
Yeah.
But all with the quarterback.
And it ironically might not even be their biggest issue right now because they're still holding on to Jimmy G. They haven't dumped him anywhere. And, you know, that kind of raises the question of, do they really believe in Trey Lance? Because if you believed in Trey Lance that fully, Jimmy G would be gone by now. You know, you have desperate teams who are looking for a quarterback. You had Carolina, who now you can't jump on that. And we'll see what happens with Cleveland, obviously, with Watson. We don't know how long he's going to get suspended. We don't know if they'll be in the market. So maybe they're waiting that out, but we'll see how it comes to terms with that QB drama, I would call it.
You know, for sure. And I think that the Cleveland point is really good, Jack, because you really don't know. And the market definitely has shrunk. I mean, maybe Houston comes calling for a quarterback. Because, I mean, Jimmy G statistically is not up there as a tier quarterback, but he wins a lot. He's not going to lose you many games. He's just going to kind of keep you in it, which for a team that wants to win the Super Bowl is probably not who you want to go with. But if you just want to be competitive, I feel like it's a guy you could maybe trade for. It just depends how much the 49ers are asking for. I think it's a really big issue when it comes to trading him.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And my biggest story around training camp, I go to the frozen tundra of the NFL, Orchard Park, New York, Buffalo. You know, they were a coin toss away from the AFC Championship, and that's a really, really talented roster, and that's a team that doesn't want to fall short again. You know, they've been on the cusp a couple times. They've ran into the Chiefs, and they just hit a brick wall, pretty much. And then you were right there with the Chiefs battling it out in Arrowhead, and whatever your opinion on the overtime rule is, what happened. They lost the game. But now you're coming in, the Chiefs just lost a huge weapon. Their defense is loaded with question marks. They lost Tyrann Mathieu to New Orleans. That might be a contender that's eliminated from Buffalo, or now it flips. Kansas City has to go into Buffalo into a snow game, which is pretty much going to be. I mean, late January in Buffalo is never not white. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So they have a huge opportunity this year. They had a lot of O-line issues last year in terms of it wasn't consistent. They played 10 different O-linemen, and the 5 that had to fill in, now we're at the bottom of that depth chart, didn't do that well. PFF ranked them the 17th best O-line at the end of the year. That's not going to get you through Kansas City. It's not going to get you through Cincinnati now this year. They have to bolster that O-line. It has to be a better group this year. And we'll see. I mean, Allen and Diggs, and obviously the emergence of Gabriel Davis last year in the playoffs. We'll see if they can do it this year.
My biggest story for the Bucks when Ryan Jensen went down and they're going to miss months, like that's 60% of their line, it's not going to be available this upcoming season.
Right.
And Brady kind of came back into this mess, and like Antonio Brown, they're down him. Gronk isn't going to come. He's probably going to come back mid-season just to win a Super Bowl, but if one presents itself. But Brady's in some trouble, and like he's got to throw the ball quick, or they got to make moves to get another guy to protect him because he's 45.
Yep, and that was the captain of their O-line, you know what I'm saying? They have some young guys on the end. They had Wirfs, and then it was Donovan Smith, I believe, who was on the right side. Jensen was a huge leader of that group. And you're talking about, that's a top 5 O-line, no question.
Oh, yeah,
for
no
sure.
question. So that's a Kelsey type of leader where he brings out the best in the other 4 guys that surround him. So that's a huge, huge loss. And it also brings up the questions of how hard teams are going in practices. You know, people are debating the topics of, are teams going too hard, or teams going too soft on players? You know, it helps the question of maybe we should go softer on players because the Buccaneers are down a key piece.
Yeah.
What, 2 days into training camp?
I think it was their first day.
Right. Yeah,
it was
been their first
it was
day.
within like 3 hours of them starting training camp. It's
They haven't even really put on the pads, and they're already down a block to Rams, Packers, all these NFC contenders that are really tough. That's a huge blow for the Buccaneers.
The biggest issue, too, is that you have a 45-year-old quarterback. Yes, Tom Brady has defied father time at this point, but you cannot have a quarterback that old get hit so many times and hope that he lasts a season. And the other thing, too, if you can't find holes for your running back and rely on Brady too much, teams, one, are going to be able to game plan for Brady at that point. You know that he doesn't really have the arm strength at the beginning of his career. You can cover those slot routes that they were very successful at in the middle of the season. But also you can run more blitzes because you know that they're mostly going to be passing the ball. You can really scheme for that. And that could really hurt the Buccaneers, not only just keeping guys healthy, but just winning games.
We'll see. The addition of Julio Jones will help with that because, like you said, Jack, they're going to have to mix in looks of Brady getting the ball out quicker. And if there's one thing Julio was always very good at, it was the routes within 10 yards, within the sticks. He can hit those hitches. He can find those holes in zones and stuff. So Julio Jones will be a big addition. And Mike Evans is Mike Evans, too.
Do you think they're going to place him in the depth chart behind Russell Gage? Because I was seeing, like, they were placing Russell Gage above him, and that kind of seemed ridiculous to me. But
I mean, I can definitely see why that would raise eyes, but they're going to have to fight it out in training camp, definitely. The thing that points up for Russell Gage is that he's younger and more agile, where Julio Jones has struggled with injuries the last couple of years, so he's going to have to stay on the field. He's going to have to prove it first in camp, which, I mean, we've only seen clips and bits, but he's been looking pretty good for them, so we'll see if he can up Gage. But I do think it's a good idea by the Buccaneers coaching staff to make Jones prove it. I think that putting Gage above him is actually a positive.
yeah. All right, now let's transition to the Cardinals. I know everyone's jumping at the bit to talk about this, but 2 questions in one. Is he worth $250 million? And second, what do you think about all the antics with his contract and what the rat in the locker room is saying about him and all of that?
So, is he worth the money that he was given? I'm going to go with yes, just because quarterbacks, especially if you think you have a franchise quarterback, are going to be paid ridiculous amounts, regardless of how much they won, how many years they played, etc. If you look at the top 6 contracts with the NFL quarterbacks, you've got Aaron Rodgers at $50 million. Murray is right now second at $46 million. And then you got Watson at $46 million. Again, we don't even know if he's going to play this year. And there is something in his contract where if he doesn't play, he only gets $1 million this year. But still, that is a lot for a quarterback. You don't know if he's going to play. Mahomes at 45. You can argue that's fair. Same with Allen at 43. And then Derek Carr is 6 with $40 million. So you're looking at these guys. You don't like Derek Carr. Yes, he is very, very good. He hasn't really done that much winning. Kyler Murray, already 3 years, has made it to a wild card with a team that really wasn't that good when he took over. And if the Cardinals think they can win with him, and he really is the best young quarterback that they've had in years, I think that you sort of have to with the way that this market is going. Now, the stuff in the contract, I think that there's definitely some stuff in guys' contracts we just don't hear about. If there's definitely questions about their character or whatnot, or their work ethic, the issue is that he's a franchise quarterback. If you have questions about that, that news is going to come out regardless of how big it is or not. I think that it's more of a non-story now, especially that they took it out of the contract. But I think that it sort of has shown how much focus is going to be on these young quarterbacks getting paid this many millions. And it really is going to have to push some of these younger guys to put in more work than you've had to before as a quarterback who's only in their second or third year, especially if you're getting paid this much this early in.
Yeah, I'm along the same lines as Aiden there. I mean, it's a really sticky and icky situation for front offices and GMs right now with the QBs, because you never want to put all your eggs in one basket in terms of throwing all of your money into one position and ultimately one player. But Aiden's right. You have that franchise QB that has shown that he can elevate your team to a different level. The Cardinals were not a good team. Obviously, they missed on the Josh Rosen pick and they were struggling for a couple of years there. And then they get Murray, and obviously you throw in a couple more pieces. They got Hopkins. Obviously, J.J. Watt hasn't played much, but, he's a good player. Chandler Jones, they traded for Ertz last year. But Murray really elevated that team to a playoff caliber team. And I think in doing this and paying him, they want to make sure he can elevate them to the championship tier, which is obviously Bills, Chiefs, all those teams with a great young quarterback. And even the ones with an old great quarterback like Green Bay and Tampa, and somewhat the Rams. Stafford is not too old, but not young, obviously. And so I was looking at Murray's stats because that's how you really gauge it. You said second highest paid QB. So I went and compared him to Rodgers, Mahomes, and Allen, because I feel like that's the cream of the crop. And if you're going to get paid that much, you have to put up the stats with him. And I was surprised to see he had the highest completion percentage of the four last year, which that was eye-opening. He also had the highest yards per attempt last year, which was eye-opening too. His touchdown passing numbers fell short of where Rodgers and Mahomes and Allen were. Mahomes, Allen, and Rodgers were all 37 and 36. And Murray was 24. His interceptions were lower than Mahomes and Allen. But I feel like we need to see a little bit more production from Murray there because, and granted, he did miss a couple games. I think he played 14 games, and the rest they played 16 and 17, I'm pretty sure. So he did miss a couple games, but I think that there's more work to be done there for Murray. I think that he can elevate his game to another level, and which leads into the other point. He's got to put in the work off the field. You know what I'm saying? Off the practice field, because it's incredibly important, especially for QBs. You have to watch before you go out there for preparation to know where defenses are going to be, pre-snap, where you're seeing guys and that sort of thing, where they're going to move. And that is going to deem where you're throwing the ball and stuff,
I also think, too, that when you're looking at a quarterback like Kyler Murray, the health, like you brought up, he only played 14 games. I think that is also a concern because he has had a lot of injury issues as well. And the thing is, if you want to pay someone like this, he's got to be healthy. I mean, when you're looking at Aaron Rodgers has basically played entire seasons multiple times. I mean, yeah, he broke his collarbone, I don't know, like 5 years ago, something like that.
And it was a freak accident.
Yeah, exactly. So he's been healthy his entire career. When you look at Mahomes, he really hasn't been hurt either. And the issue with Kyler Murray, he doesn't really throw a lot because he sort of relies on his legs a decent amount more than some of these other guys. That is a pretty big concern, and that was always a question mark for him coming out of college. Yes, you're super athletic. You're also a little bit undersized comparatively, and look what's happening to Russell Wilson, where he's gotten beaten up late in his career, isn't really the same player that he was at the beginning. So I think there is also that concern when it comes to Kyler Murray as well.
I think I'm going to take the different side of you guys. I do not think he should be the second highest paid quarterback. I don't think talent-wise he matches up. And I'm going to read you 3 quarterback records, and I want you to guess which one Kyler Murray is. So one of them is 29 and 21. The other is 30 and 30. One is 45 and 18. and the other one is 22-23 with one tie. Which one do you think Kyler is?
Well, I do know, though the tie gave it away for me, but yeah.
I was going to say the last one as well, but I understand your point.
Yeah. I mean, I do like the 29-21 is Mitch Trubisky, and that just kind of blows my mind because, like, the Bears are a way worse team than the Cardinals were, and then, like, there's a bunch of, like, rumors around him not being too involved with, like, film study per se. People think he's, like, really immature and all that, and I just don't think you could justify giving him that much money when there are question marks presented, when he has a better team than some guys, and he still wins less than guys that are like backups right now.
Yeah, I do see your point, and it definitely raises my eyebrows because I feel like the Cardinals front office they just let themselves get walked over in a way because they could have gone to the negotiation table and said, these are your numbers and this is how our team has done, and we don't feel we should be paying you Mahomes, Allen, Rodgers numbers. But I feel like Kyler and his agent, because this is really his agent's work, his agent took the reins and really, really took control, I feel like, of the entire situation. And he started it from the jump. I mean, they could have signed him way back when he took all the Cardinals stuff off his Instagram. They could have started all the way back then and signed him. And it probably would have been at a lower price. Maybe or maybe not. We don't really know, but how this all played out, I think the Cardinals handled it terribly.
Yeah, just to finish off, I think that Jack's point goes really well with the record, that the Cardinals have handled this terribly. The Cardinals really haven't had great front office success through almost their entire history, but especially when you look at the 2000s, their two best quarterbacks have been Kurt Warner, who was at like basically the end of his career when he signed to Arizona as a backup to Matt Leinart, who was absolutely terrible. And then the other one was Carson Palmer, who was also at the end of his career. So really, you haven't had a lot of young quarterbacks who were so successful with the Cardinals. And I feel like that the Cardinals almost don't know how to handle a guy who's that young, that talented.
Yeah.
And that can be an issue, as you're seeing right now with Arizona.
Well, let's transition to fantasy football. All of us have insights for the upcoming season. I'll start first. So I'm going to drop who I would draft first overall, a couple sleeper picks, and then a bust pick. So personally, I think you're crazy if you do not pick Derrick Henry first overall, especially given what the Titans look like right now. And Aiden's laughing, but let me explain. All right. Yes, he missed half of the games last year due to a foot injury. I can't remember the last time that ever happened. Ever. And they lose A.J. Brown. They replace him with Robert Woods. You're not getting the same production. You're not. And there's a battle for quarterback, and both of those guys are better with their feet than they are with their hands. So what are they going to do most of the time? Scoop it to Henry.
Yeah.
And then he's going to go get like 4.5 yards a carry, like 30 times a game, and he's just going to run up everybody's throat. So I don't know how you guys could pick like Saquon Barkley and C-Mac, who played like a full season's worth of games in like 3 years. They always get hurt. They always fall short. Yes, when they do play, they'll give you like 24 points a game, but for how many games?
Right.
They're never healthy. Never. And it's the team's fault, not theirs. So 2 sleeper picks. I'm going to go Devonta Smith first. And last year, he had 963 yards on the season. He was the number 1 receiver on the team. In his rookie year, he faced all number 1 corners and still almost put up 1,000 yards his first year in the league, which is really impressive, especially when you look at guys similar in age to him like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, who have way better quarterbacks that look down the field. And Jalen Hurts is great, but he didn't really do that his first year at all with Devonta Smith. It was all shorter stuff, but hopefully he can do it now because we have another deep ball receiver, and which leads to my other point. A.J. Brown is going to take all the top corners, leaving Devonta Smith with the second-tier cornerback. So I think he's going to run down the field all day, every day on all the corners. until maybe he shifts into the top receiver that I think he could be on the team.
And you saw that last year in
Yes.
Cincinnati when Boyd was taking the number one corner. Chase was left wide open, and you saw he had an amazing rookie year.
Yeah, and I'm so high on Devonta Smith. I really think that he's going to join the ranks of Jamar Chase and like Justin Jefferson for like the young generational talent wide receivers.
It's ambitious, but I could definitely see that.
He definitely won the Heisman.
Yeah, he definitely had you just said he won the Heisman. He definitely has the athletic ability
Absolutely.
to do that. And even with his size, which was a huge question mark, there was a few times where he had amazing jump balls,
Right.
and was just great at pretty much catching anything that came his way, which was always his best skill set in college, was just catching pretty much everything. So yeah, I definitely could see him up there.
And I don't know if you guys saw Instagram, but he looks absolutely massive now. He's not skinny anymore. Like, everyone's got to watch out. And my second sleeper pick, I'm going Tony Pollard. I think he's going to be a flex starter for any guy that gets him on their roster. Because if you look at the last 2 or 3 seasons, he's been eating into Ezekiel Elliott's carries more and more every year. He's not good with conditioning, and he's like more of a play action guy that they could throw to, and not only just run, but he has insane like yards per carry or yards per catch. Like, I just think the trend is going to continue upward for him eating into Zeke's carries. So I would definitely look for him if he's available. And this is a controversial pick for bust, but I'm going Michael Thomas. One, the quarterback, so not really his fault. Second, he's coming off a lot of missed time. Him and like Drew Brees like had an amazing connection because they like for Drew Brees, like Michael Thomas was his perfect receiver, and Michael Thomas was Drew Brees' like perfect quarterback. And I think there's going to be a disconnect there. And I don't want to feed into the slant play narrative, but
If you're playing PPR, then it works great.
Yeah.
it does, but I think there's going to be a disconnect this season.
Yeah.
No, I can see that.
And Slay's breaking down the top 5 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'll do. So I was ranking my top 5 fantasy quarterbacks, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to put Brady in this top 5, but he does come in at number 5 for me. I think number 6 would probably be a battle between Burrow, Lamar, and Derek Carr this year. The reason I say Carr is because of the addition of Devontae Adams. I think that's going to be immense for him and him taking another step. As we talked about with Kyler, he brought the Raiders to the playoffs. Now he's got to take that other step. They gave him what he needs. I think he's going to be great for fantasy this year, though. So
More than what he needs.
So yeah, Brady 5, and then number 4, I have probably my MVP of the league pick, Justin Herbert for the Chargers. Herbert's ability is crazy. His arm is an absolute cannon, and he fits balls into so many tight windows. He's got the zip on it. He's got anticipation. He reads defenses very well. He's a full package. He's going to be an incredible quarterback this year.
I think he's next Rodgers.
Oh yeah, I could definitely.
I think he might even be better than Aaron Rodgers in some
He
ways.
might be.
He
really
Just
might be.
the fact that he has a little bit more athletic ability than Rodgers. Rodgers is great at extending plays, no doubt, but Herbert is just so much of a bigger athlete than Rodgers is.
yeah.
It was exciting to a lot of guys who were scouts, and he has lived up to that hype.
The battles between, it's literally going to be Herbert, Allen, Mahomes, and Burrow
For sure.
every year.
Every year.
Oh my gosh, that's going to be great. But to round it out, I feel like the top 3 are pretty easy.
Yeah.
I have 3 Mahomes. I have 2 Rodgers. And my number 1 is going to be Josh Allen this year.
Yeah.
I think Allen is the easy pick this year for number 1 quarterback.
Yeah, I think that's fair, mostly because when you look at Allen's rushing ability as well, I think he leads the league from when he's entered for quarterback rushing touchdowns,
Yeah.
which when you're playing fantasy football, you have to have a quarterback that can run as well, but also can stay healthy, which is something that he's been able to do very well. That's something that Lamar Jackson has somewhat successful, but last year got hurt a lot. So you have to be careful when you're drafting running quarterbacks. And so far, it seems that Josh Allen is that safe pick.
Yeah.
Very durable.
Yeah.
All right. So I have a couple of guys that I would have as my top 2 picks. I'll go with my second guy because he's been my number 1 for the last 3 years or so, and it is Davante Adams. I play in PPR leagues most of the time, which is points per reception, so every time you get a catch, it counts as 1 fantasy point. When I have a guy like Davante Adams, who was the number 1 at Green Bay and the decisive number 1 for multiple seasons, it was a very clear pick for me just because he was averaging around 7 catches a game. I'm definitely a little bit more concerned now that he went to the Raiders, just because you now have Hunter Renfrow that could eat into some of those receptions, and Darren Waller as well. And Carr, as much as I like Derek Carr, he is no Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers really relied on Adams to get him out of a lot of situations. So I'm worried that will eat into a little bit of his receptions. So he'll still be up there in probably one of my first 5 rounds if he's still available. But definitely not my number 1. It's actually gonna be someone else.
According to Devonta Smith, though, it's Hall of Famer to Hall of Fame.
Right. Yeah, for sure. But my number 1, Jack, I feel like you're making up for your first round pick last year. Saying that you would take someone other than my guy, which is Najee Harris, who was actually my second round pick. And here's why I say that. Najee Harris last year was a rookie. I was more out of, I needed to pick him because all the best running backs were taken. And it was more of, oh my gosh, I don't have a running back. And it ended up working out really well for me. Last year, he got 1,200 rushing yards and 7 TDs. But he also got 74 receptions. There was a lot of questions about whether or not he'd be able to catch balls out of the backfield. And that was something that he did really well with Pittsburgh. And at this point now, Pittsburgh has lost Juju Smith-Schuster. So really their best 4 wide receivers are Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, George Pickens, who is a rookie and also is coming off a torn ACL, and Calvin Austin III, who's a rookie coming out of Memphis, Memphis is a good football school, but not great. You don't really know what you're getting out of there. So I feel like Najee Harris is going to still get a lot of these short little receptions. And again, it depends on the league you're playing. If you're playing in a points per reception league, I feel like Najee Harris should be up there for your top picks or one of your top picks if some of these other running backs are gone. And that's just because of the amount of carries that he's going to get. Obviously, he's still young enough that he could be that cowbell running back for the Steelers, and you don't have to worry about his health the same way that you have to do for Saquon or Christian McCaffrey. So I feel like that's probably your safest pick.
Yeah. So if you had number 1 overall pick, you're taking Harris?
I would say yes.
That's bold. But
I'm going with I would go a different direction than you guys. I would go receiver, honestly. And my only reason for that is because of reliability and durability. I just feel like running backs get too banged up and they miss too much time. It's the ankles,
Except Henry.
Oh yeah, for sure. Again, this is Jack taking Derrick Henry last year and still wanting to defend that pick.
If I was number 1, I'd be so scared. I would go. My top 2 would be Jefferson and Kupp, because I feel like they're just reliable. They're gonna give you 20 points every week. I don't have to worry about them missing games. They're just gonna give me what I can, and then I can fill in the pieces around them. Like if I wanted to go, let's say like a T. Higgins as my second receiver picked.
The issue with most PPR leagues, from what I've seen just playing in the league that I played in, is that most people want to go for that running back because they feel like they can get that PPR, plus you get the rushing stuff as well, where the wide receiver, you're really only getting the receptions and the touchdowns and the yards, where you're not getting that extra variety with the run.
Yeah.
And the issue is if you wait to get that running back, you're going to be kind of stuck. That's where I was last year. That's why I drafted Najee Harris. Like I said, it was pretty much out of desperation of not having that running back because that's what everyone went for.
Yeah.
So you sort of have to play your league, I feel like. What people do around you. But trying to get a running back pretty early, I would say, is something that you have to do if you want a good team.
Another slept-on running back coming into this year is going to be Eckler. He's going to be slept on again because...
You think? Isn't he projected like top 5, though?
I just think people are going to pass on him. I think people are going to jump the gun on Saquon again and CMC. I think people are going to jump on CMC again.
They never learn.
They really don't. Those are the 2 guys I would never pick.
Ezekiel Elliott's the 3rd for me.
Yeah.
He's up there too, but I think he had not a bounce back year, but he wasn't as bad as 2020 in 2021.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Like,
2020 was terrible. He was my pick in 2020.
Oh, yeah,
I think he was my first round.
I remember,
and it was like 7s and 8s, and I'm ripping my hair out every freaking week because this guy can't stay on the field. Right. And when he's on the field, he doesn't get the carries. I mean, Pollard is a great sleeper pick.
Yeah,
that's a
for
really
sure.
good sleeper pick.
Yeah.
One play a drive for Ezekiel Elliott, though.
Mm-hmm.
That was someone I would probably look at for my background picks, sort of between 5 to 10, because the issue is can never trust the Cowboys to do the logical thing with Jerry Jones as your owner. Jerry Jones paid Zeke all of this money. He's going to try to get McCarthy to use Zeke as much as possible, regardless of what the smart decision is.
Yep.
But at a certain point, if Zeke reverts back to 2020 or a little bit worse, obviously he's gotten older. You don't know what type of shape he's in anymore. And Pollard gets those carries, it could pay off dividends for your team.
They've also lost some line.
Yep.
They lost their guard to Cincinnati. Yeah.
Their line isn't what it used to be.
No,
Definitely not.
No.
So we'll transition into baseball. Do you guys think it's World Series or bust for the Yankees?
I feel like it's gotta be World Series or bust this year. If I'm a Yankees fan, I'm shaking in my boots. The Judge situation scares the crap out of me.
Explain.
They don't know if he's coming back. And in my opinion, I may be wrong, because obviously I'm not Aaron Judge. I don't know what he's thinking. But from what I saw at the MLB All-Star Game interview, I don't know if you guys saw that. The girl asked him, I don't remember the exact question, but her question was along the lines of, are you going to be returning to the Yankees? And it was a long, awkward pause. And he basically, it was just really bad. And I would be very scared if I was a Yankees fan. And I think the only way for the Yankees to keep him is to win the World Series this year. And they've invested too much money into this team for it to fall on its face again.
Yeah.
They fell so hard last year when they had to lose to their rivals in the wildcard game, who ended up going to the ALCS. I mean, it was there for them last year. They could have won that game and their path would have been easier. And they really missed an opportunity. It can't happen again this year, because I really think Judge is going out west if it doesn't work out this year for them.
So I agree. I think it's World Series or bust. I just don't. If you had asked me a month ago, are the Yankees making it to the World Series and are the Yankees winning, I would have said 100% yes, without a doubt. Since July 1st up to now, they have lost a series to Houston that was very scary. They almost got shut out, no hit 2 days in a row. Basically in the 7th inning of the second game after the no hitter, they were still getting no hit, which was just crazy. And then they got swept in a 2-game series against the Mets. Obviously, they have another 2-game series coming up against them. So this is just the first part of that. But man, they didn't look that good against Scherzer either. And that's who you're going to be facing. And again, DeGrom hasn't even been back yet for the Mets.
Right.
No.
So you have to first make it through Houston, which the Yankees historically have struggled against in the playoffs.
Yep.
And then you're probably, at this point, it's either Dodgers or Mets.
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels like, yes, the Yankees traded for Andrew Benintendi. I thought that was a great trade. I thought that it will help your batting average a lot. Yes, he's not hitting as many home runs as he hit previously, but really they have so many power hitters. You just need a guy to get on base.
it's not the power for them. Right.
Exactly. And their pitching's been really great as well. But man, you got to beat these other great teams. And Houston really came out of almost nowhere because they had been struggling for the first half of the regular season up till the All-Star break. And since about middle of June, they've just taken off.
Yeah.
So those are two teams that if I'm a Yankees fan, I'm not feeling as confident as I was going into this month, but I still feel like we've got to win the World Series because we've been making a push since 2017 to now, and we've come so close multiple times. We've just got to push it through now, like you said, because of the Judge contract, because of a couple other guys getting older. This is really their best opportunity in a very long time.
Right. And if Judge doesn't come back next year, it's going to be dark days, dark days, because you are tied up on a couple bad contracts. I mean, Cole, I think his ERA is above 3.3 now, which is not what you paid him for. Stanton, he's a great player, but he's not been what you paid him for. This is really it. And if they don't get Judge back, which they better be all in on Judge, all in. There's no excuse to let this guy walk. There's absolutely none.
Yeah, I mean, he really has become the face of the Yankees that they were missing when Jeter retired.
Right.
And it would be, not only are you losing a great player, in Judge, you're losing the face of the locker room as well. I mean, yeah, you brought in a couple of other guys, but he's been with the Yankees all the way up.
He's their heartbeat.
Exactly. And that's a really tough thing to say, oh, yeah, we're just going to let you walk away. I mean, look at what happened with the Braves. Yes, they've still been playing pretty well, but not nearly. It doesn't feel the same as when they had Freddie Freeman. And you knew when Freddie Freeman was coming up to the plate with the Atlanta Braves that your team was in trouble.
Yep.
And because he was just a heartbeat, even if he wasn't playing well, it was just someone surrounded around the team. Yeah. So it's really hard for someone like that to walk away.
It really doesn't feel right. Freddie Freeman's on the Dodgers.
Oh, it really doesn't.
I mean, it feels good for Phillies fans.
Yeah.
I don't have to see Hector Harris going in the ninth and Freddie Freeman coming.
Oh, yeah. Well, my quick, simple take on this is I'm not as big of a baseball guy as these guys are, but I know the Yankees are the Cowboys of the MLB. So they need to win.
Much.
They're in trouble.
Yeah.
All right. So, little side question to this: is Aaron Judge the best player in baseball?
I got to go right now. This year, he definitely is. I mean, I was looking through Baseball Reference. His OPS this year is 1059, which is obviously really good. Harper, I think, was at a 1020 last year in his MVP season. Mm-hmm. But what really stuck out to me is his OPS plus 197. So that means that he's 97% better than the average MLB hitter in terms of OPS. That stat is incredible. That's Barry Bonds numbers. Those are Ken Griffey Jr. numbers. He has had an outstanding season. Nothing short of MVP. Nothing short. I mean, he is running away with the award this year in the AL. And like Aiden said, it looked a month ago that they were running away with the AL pennant. And now they've kind of come back down. They're coming back down to the pack just a little bit. But yeah, they're coming back down. Astros are catching up. Mm-hmm. We'll see. Yeah. Because in baseball, it's not like you can just have the MVP and it carries you through October. That's not baseball. Mm-hmm. And that's not it's not fair on Aaron Judge to say that you have to carry the Yankees through October. He's going to have an 0-4 game in the playoffs. It's going to happen. Mm-hmm. The other pieces have to do it. But I mean, Aaron Judge's individual season has been incredible this year. And if he continues this is going to be an all-time MVP season, season.
So yeah, I was just looking up to make sure we didn't miss Aaron Judge hitting a home run while we were doing this. He didn't hit one today. It feels like he's hitting one pretty much every day. So he's at 40 right now. He's still on pace for around 65, 64. He would be the sixth player in MLB history to hit 60-plus home runs. Third Yankee player to do it. And at this point, he would be the Yankees' all-time home run leader for one season. Mm-hmm. And you're talking guys like Babe Ruth hit multiple times. He led the Yankees in home runs. The only other guy to hit 60 for the Yankees was Roger Maris. But I mean, Judge hit 52, 50 his first season.
Yeah.
So he's doing this twice now in almost his 6 years playing Major League Baseball. It's really incredible what he's done. I would say that Judge is having the best season. If I'm talking best player right now in baseball, I'm still going Shohei Ohtani because he's doing something we have not seen since Babe Ruth, where you have a guy that can hit 20 home runs and also win around 10 games pitching, especially for the Angels, which is the fact he's won any games while pitching for the Angels is just incredible in itself.
Yeah, he got screwed out of a lot of wins this year too.
Yeah. He did. Yeah. For sure. So I feel like if I'm talking best player this season like Jack did, I'm going Judge. If I'm talking best player, who would I want right now? I'm going Shohei.
Yeah, we're definitely on the same lines. And I have an insane Shohei Ohtani stat for you. I told Jack this one, but I haven't told you. Since 1974, Shohei Ohtani, when he's pitching, batters have the lowest OPS with runners in scoring position against him out of any pitcher since 1974.
Insane.
And since 1974, batters with runners in scoring position, Shohei Ohtani has the highest OPS.
Wow.
So not only is he the best hitter, he's also the best pitcher.
Well, this is what I've been saying. If he just decided tomorrow, I just want to be a pitcher, he'd easily win 2 to 3 Cy Youngs if he could stay healthy.
Right, yeah.
And that is incredible considering that he is one of the best hitters in baseball, not just the AL. Yeah.
Right, if he said, I want to play the outfield and DH, he'd be one of the best hitters.
It's really incredible because you hear so many top prospects, so many guys overseas who come in. Yes, they do very well at whatever level they're at before they get to Major League Baseball. And yeah, some of them are still pretty successful.
Yeah.
But what he is doing is just, he's not only saying, oh yeah, I can do this. He's exceeding everyone's expectations, which are already sky high considering what he was doing in Japan before he got here.
Right.
Mm-hmm. He's really just, I can't say as much as I want to about how great of a player he is and how many history that we are seeing
You're
as
right.
baseball fans.
And I don't know if he'll even be a trailblazer for this type of player. I don't know if anyone else can do this. I seriously don't know, because the amount of hits your body has to endure and just take through a 162 game season on its own is insane. But now you are starting and playing the field in between your starts.
Yeah.
That's,
again,
seriously,
do you think it's sustainable though? Like,
I really hope so, obviously.
Yeah.
I think he can do it. I think he's got 5 or 6 years of it.
Yeah.
And then he's going to have to choose one. But, because he's young. He's not an old guy.
is he even 30 yet?
No, he's still
No.
27, I think.
Yeah,
Really?
26 or 27 right now. So, I think he's got a couple more years of it. Maybe, I might be on the higher end. It might be 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But, yeah, at some point, if he wants to have a 15-year career, let's say.
Yeah. I think
he's going to have to choose.
I totally agree with that. I think one of the things that's not talked about, it's talked about with Babe Ruth that he became an outfielder, not just pitcher. And mostly that was because the Yankees wanted him to be a hitter because they knew that's what would bring people to the seats. It wouldn't be his pitching. It'd be his monstrous home runs in Yankee Stadium.
Right.
But the biggest thing too is that Babe Ruth was not in great shape. And he still, from when he got traded to the Yankees, played till 1935. That's 16 years for a guy that historically we know was not in the peak shape.
He was drinking beers.
Exactly.
In
Drinking
the
and eating
in the dugout.
6 hot dogs
Literally.
before a game and was still played as long as he did. Part of that is the fact that he was able to focus on just his outfielding and he still probably would have played 10 years, which I don't know how, had he continued pitching, but his career wouldn't have been as long and his numbers wouldn't have been as big.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing too, with the money involved, and this is sort of a little bit different, a way different than when Ruth played, is that if you want the big money, you kind of have to decide one or the other, because teams will look at that and say, oh, well, your stats, yes, they're great. And like this, like your on-base percentage and the on-base percentage you're allowing, but what are your home runs? What are your wins losses? You're going to have to pick if you want the top dollar. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you come to that financial decision as well with wins, because the Angels aren't winning, I think that might factor into that decision as well.
So I will switch the topic, not too far off this, but do you think the bigger story is the Juan Soto situation or the possibility that Shohei Ohtani could dip because Mike Trout's back injury is like looming?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Juan Soto just because that seems a bit more like it's a possibility of happening. At this point, the Angels have pretty much said that they don't want to trade Ohtani. I really don't know why. My only guess is the fact that they feel like it would be a little bit rushed and they wouldn't get back what they want.
Yeah.
And it would be to a team that maybe they were competing against. Like maybe it would be someone like the Astros who still have a lot of younger guys. And you might not want to trade someone like that to a division rival. Even if you feel like you might not win in the next couple of years, it's still a little bit demoralizing to play a guy that was your best player, to see him then play you like a bunch of times the next season and the next couple of seasons. So I feel like the Juan Soto one's much bigger. I also don't think Juan Soto will get traded, but I think it's the fact that he led the Nationals to a World Series, was supposed to be the face of the franchise from when Bryce Harper moved to the Phillies, and now suddenly he's going to be gone as well. I think that makes it a much bigger story because it seems obvious that Ohtani would want to leave the Angels.
Yeah.
I get that the Nationals are also going to rebuilding as well, but it feels kind of weird that the face of the franchise is saying, yeah, I don't want to be here, considering also that the Nationals have a great front office, and just did win the World Series a couple of years ago. So to me, I feel like that's the bigger story.
I almost like spit like water out of my mouth when I saw he declined $440
I know.
million.
It's
like,
crazy.
Yeah.
I feel like any like person that doesn't like follow sports, like it just gets angered by that.
Oh,
This is why people don't like sports. When you
Yeah.
see some guy turn down $400 million, we're all sitting here.
Yeah.
We're like,
Yeah.
I don't know too much about that.
Like he's amazing, but like realistically, he may never get an offer that big.
He might not, but I mean, we'll see. He's gonna, if he enters free agency this summer, he's gonna be the top Or I shouldn't say summer, I should say winter.
Yeah, well, he still has 2 years left on his contract, too, so it's looking for, like, an extension almost.
Okay. Right.
But I think it's also he wants to go to a team that he knows he can win with, plus the extension.
Yeah.
So, and that's the issue. It's a very small market for teams that can pay you that money, have the draft capital, or these young guys, not draft capital, but have these young guys that are in the minors, plus some major league guys with low service time, and are in a position to win. It's literally like 2 or 3 teams, and that's going to make it really hard to trade them.
Right. I think the Nationals would be smart to keep Soto and really build around that core. The guys they got from LA in the Scherzer deal and Trey Turner deal I draw a blank on the first name, but Ruiz, the catcher. And then I think his name's Keibert Ruiz. And the pitcher Josiah Gray. They have a nice core, honestly. I think as dire as the situation has gotten for the Nationals since they won the World Series, which they fell straight off a cliff. I mean, that was terrible. Yeah. As dire as that turned around after 2019, I still think that they can salvage a lot with Soto because of the guys, like I said. And the fact that you're going to have a couple picks here, you're not going to be a great team in 2022, obviously. You're going to have a nice high draft pick. You could really get some key pieces here. And in key young players comes the possibility of trading them for a superstar that is disgruntled, kind of like their own, but, they can influx that situation, kind of like how the Phillies did with JT Realmuto, that kind of situation. The reason for me why Juan Soto and the Nationals is the biggest story has less to do with on the field or even their negotiations. It's the fact that Soto turned down that contract and then the Nationals didn't fly him out to the All-Star game.
That was a little bit petty. Just a bit.
Petty on both ends.
Right.
Yeah, well, because that Scott Boras, who is, for people that don't know, baseball's biggest super agent, and has contracts for most of the biggest players, including Juan Soto, is the one that let the story go out. And what some people point out is the fact that Scott Boras, who was a billionaire agent, didn't also put Juan Soto on a private jet if it was such a big deal.
Yeah.
But, okay, hypothetically, both of the guys are getting traded before the deadline. Who do you want instead? Shohei Ohtani or Juan Soto?
I am an enormous Juan Soto fan. I love Juan Soto. I adore his game. But I think, to all the points we touched on earlier, I think you have to go Ohtani. And again, price does come into effect, but if we're just talking strictly hypothetical, who would I rather have in a trade? I have to go Ohtani. I just have to.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think if you're talking realistically, it depends on what your team's needs are. Because as great as an athlete as Ohtani is, he's really mostly a pitcher and DH because you don't want him playing too much to the field. So if you absolutely need an outfielder, Juan Soto is your first choice. But if you're talking best skill player, the guy that's going to get you the most wins, the guy that's going to help you the most, it's got to be Ohtani.
Before we move on to, imagine Ohtani on the Phillies team right now. Just how perfect that would be.
It would be nice.
It would fill in.
Here's the thing. Bryce comes back. Because obviously Ohtani's the DH for most of the time when he's not pitching. So if Bryce comes back, you have Ohtani pitch you can make him your full-time pitcher if you really wanted to, but you could also put him in the outfield while Bryce is recovering.
Right.
So that would be, God, it would be great.
But there is no way.
You would have to give up so much. and for a depleted farm system that has already been talked about as one of the worst.
I don't think our top 10 prospects would do it.
Yeah, and you'd have to give up Stott.
Yep.
And Bohm, because they both have low service time in Major League Baseball, plus your two best minor league players, it would be way too much. It would be great. It would be too much.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to transition to the NBA. Obviously, Kevin Durant requested a trade. The league economy is just so messed up, so obviously the talk stopped. Does it really make sense for any team to trade for Kevin Durant?
This is a situation where price has a huge factor on this trade. What Sean Marks is looking for right now for Durant, at least what has been reported, 6 first-round picks, something along those lines. I don't think any team is desperate enough to do that.
Yeah.
I think if you're on the fringe of a championship and you want to trade for Durant, there's a different player you can go for where you don't have to give up much that can push you over. Kind of a situation with the Celtics where they traded for Brogdon.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't give up as much. Obviously, they didn't give up much of anything. I think they gave up 1 first-round pick, and was it Naismith? And they didn't even give up Derek White Jr.
Yeah. And if
And
you
it was
remember,
Tice, I think.
the last Kevin Durant trade was literally D'Angelo Russell and a first-round pick.
Right. Uh-huh.
And obviously, like, inflation is, like, times 10 in, like, the NBA right now. It's all the Timberwolves' fault. Like, how do you,
Right.
like, give up? How do you take Rudy Gobert for, like, 5 picks and 5 players?
It makes no sense. And it's so
Bad.
It's so
league.
stupid.
Yeah.
Like, how oblivious are you to
Yeah.
other people's mistakes?
Mhm.
Like, this has never worked out for anyone.
No.
Look at the direction the NBA is going, and look at how they constructed their team with Twin Towers. It makes no sense.
No sense.
And the fact they gave up Beasley in that deal.
Yep.
What are you doing?
He's so good.
He's a nice player,
Yeah.
and that's a way better fit for your team than Gobert. Way better.
Mhm. If he wasn't a scumbag, like, he would literally
Yeah,
be,
I mean,
like,
yeah,
the guy you
exactly.
want.
Yep.
How do you, like, justify, like, I see why Sean Marks wants so much in return, because, like, Kevin Durant, I think he's, like, a million times better than Rudy Gobert. Like, I'm a Rudy Gobert hater, kind of, but, like, have to at least double what they got for Rudy Gobert and Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Right, which
Right.
would be the equivalent of like
10 picks.
Yeah, 10 picks and like
The
6
entire
players.
NBA.
Yeah.
pretty much. So it would be a lot.
They'd actually reclone Michael Jordan. For
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah, like, literally. They need, like, it's so bad, like, when teams are not run well and they just do whatever, like, get ridiculous deals, and then guys like, wait, that should be me. Donovan Mitchell is probably gonna be at least the same haul for Rudy Gobert, at least.
He's got to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if anyone's dumb enough to do it again, but
Yeah.
why wouldn't the Jazz GM be looking for that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I was racking my brain when I saw this question, just thinking of a team that could do this trade. Regardless of what the Timberwolves did, because I don't think any team would give up that much, although who knows. But the one team that racked my brain, and it's kind of interesting that this is the conclusion I came with, the only team that makes sense to me is the Golden State Warriors. And it's only because of the fact that they have the young players to give up, that they'd be willing to. You have the draft picks, and you already have a core around your big 3, the same core that obviously Durant won 2 championships with and went to 3
Right.
straight. But it just... And that's sort of why I don't think this trade happens. Obviously, he's not going back to Golden State.
Yeah, he doesn't want to.
No,
He's
exactly.
the
He doesn't
one.
want to go there. Golden State doesn't want him back. So obviously, he's not going there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see any other team that's going to be willing to give up that much.
Right.
And that is in a position to give that much other than the Warriors.
And to be
Yeah.
honest, I think Sean Marks is doing it the right way. He's sort of taking a page out of Maury's book.
Oh, 100%.
You know, Maury, although, you know, you could debate whether the Harden trade was good or not, the way he handled the
Right.
Simmons fiasco got
He
him
waited.
what he wanted.
Right. Yeah, because
Ultimately.
he could have given up. The thing is everyone knows Durant wants out.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be giving up what the Timberwolves or anything
Yeah.
close to that because you know that he wants out. Every other team is a leverage. If you keep waiting it out, you kind of see what's happening in the middle of the season right before the deadline.
Eventually, something will crack.
Right,
Harden
exactly.
misses 2 weeks with
Yeah.
his team. That he
Right.
saw the crack. He
Right.
slipped through.
Right, exactly. So I think that I agree with both of you. I think this is a very smart decision by the Nets to just wait this out. Don't try pushing anything because you're not going to get what you probably deserve because every team knows you're desperate.
Yeah.
Which again, it goes back to the Timberwolves point. I don't really know what was happening because the Timberwolves, like neither team was that desperate
Right.
to begin with. Because I mean, the Timberwolves, yeah, they've never been like a great franchise ever since the early 2000s.
No.
But you already had a pretty decent young core with Edwards, with Cat. Like that was a good 1-2
They're going to
punch.
be nice. That core
They'll
will
still be
nice.
Yeah.
good. It's just not going to be the same now that you lost Beasley, who's
Yeah.
like a decent guard.
You lost Beasley, which was a huge piece off your bench.
Right.
And now you bring in Gobert, who, yeah, he could be a good player at the right price, but isn't his contract over $150 million?
something gigantic,
It's close to
which-
They're
200, I'm
paying
pretty sure.
him and Cat like a combined like $585
And
million.
Unbelievable.
See, and this is the issue. You now have Anthony Edwards, who was your top draft pick last year. Where are you going to find the space to pay him if you're Minnesota?
Yeah,
like
who's
Minnesota's
gonna pay him?
not a big
The
franchise.
Minnesota government is going to
Exactly.
have to start paying
Like
him.
even the Sixers, which is in a big city, Philadelphia, which is a big basketball city, could only give out 3 max contracts. Do you think the Timberwolves, who aren't in a position to win, are going to do that? I don't see that happening.
They have no chance.
Yeah, they really done a number on themselves. But my take on the whole Kevin Durant thing is I'm really against trading like guys of those caliber because I just don't think no matter what situation you'll get equal return.
Yeah.
Whether it's now or in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert, we're all Sixers fans, so like I obviously think about like the Harden and Simmons trade, and I didn't like it. Like I like we got Harden, but like we gave up a lot, and like the Nets probably don't like it because Ben didn't play at all last year, and who knows if he's gonna touch the court next year.
Right,
like,
yeah.
Honestly.
And you could argue that he's the one that ruined the entire dynamic in Brooklyn because when you're going into the playoffs and your back's against the wall with Boston and Simmons says, "Oh, I'll be there for game 3."
Mm-hmm.
And then the morning of not just he doesn't show up, the morning of game 3 bails out.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh, I'll be ready for game 4."
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. Yeah. Bails out. And we were literally sitting in Philadelphia, May, whatever, April, whatever, when
March
we're
11th.
told, is that when no, I'm talking when we were told Simmons was going to come back for game 3, which was.
Oh, yeah, that was
I thought you were
April,
talking
early
about when he
May,
came
something
back
like
to
that,
Philly.
yeah.
No, I never want to think about that day again. But we're sitting there and we're told Simmons is going to play for game 3. And I listen to Philly sports radio all the time. Once it happened, everyone said he ain't playing game 3. Yeah. Everyone said that. We knew he wasn't playing game 3. Yep. He's like that. That's just him. He's going to do his own thing. He wants everything to be catered around himself. And that is not Kevin Durant at all.
Yeah.
Or Kyrie Irving, but especially not Kevin Durant. And
did you see like the post that Ben Simmons put on his Instagram story like minutes before Kevin Durant? Like feeling incredible, and then Kevin Durant requests a trade.
Yeah, that was
it felt like her. But Jack, I want to touch on your point a little bit. You said just now that Durant's not like that and Kyrie's not like that. But Kyrie is like that, and that's sort of the big issue.
Yeah, you're actually kind of right.
Because here's the thing, like, I'm not even talking about the vaccine stuff. I don't really want to touch on that. It happened, whatever. I'm talking about the season before when he missed 10 games in Brooklyn, literally left the team and didn't say anything. Like, look, I get if you have a family emergency and all that, but you have to communicate with your team what's going on.
Right.
You can't just dip. And so on top, when you add on the fact that he missed all the home games and didn't really play road games till the Nets needed him to, it sort of feels like he's gonna do his own thing as well.
Okay, yeah.
So I feel like when you add in Ben Simmons with that, it just made it not fun for Durant, who thought, oh yeah, I'm gonna go play with my friends Harden and Kyrie and we're gonna win multiple championships or whatever. And that didn't happen.
Yep.
And now he's not having fun anymore. And like, I don't really blame Durant because he wasn't happy at the end with Golden State. And also he could kind of tell the writings on the wall, like, not that I'm not one of those people that like gets mad at him for like going to Golden State and winning the championship. That's not me.
No.
Like, I'm totally fine with everything that happened. I understand why NBA fans don't like that.
Right.
But to me, like, that's what most players are doing now. Like, I mean, it's not like when LeBron teamed up with D Wade. Exactly. Like, that team was already built and he just wanted to join and the Warriors made that trade. But it's sort of, to me, it sort of feels like that Durant wanted to win that championship on his own, or a little bit more on his own, than going to like Brooklyn with Kyrie, team up together, because Harden wasn't there at that point.
Yeah.
So as we're going to go together, we both have had this same label on us that we needed other people to win championships, so we're going to win a championship together.
Yeah.
And when Kyrie sort of bailed and then Harden asked for the trade, at that point, I think Durant sort of like got the writing on the wall and saw that nothing was going to happen. And I think at that point, it shows Durant has a different mindset compared to these other guys, where these other guys are more in it for themselves. And Durant is sort of in between of he wants to win a championship for himself, but to win a championship for himself, he has to win it for a team as well.
Yeah, that's you're right. He wants to win the championship for his own goals and everything, but he knows what goes into a championship.
Right,
he knows
exactly.
he needs to
He's
sacrifice
been part of it.
ego and everything.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. Like, Kyrie, I feel like didn't have to sacrifice a lot because he was a young player. And when the Cavaliers got LeBron in free agency and then made the trade for Kevin Love, that kind of made Kyrie the bottom 3 of that 3, just because he was younger, not because of it. Obviously, we know of how great of a ball handler he is. He's probably top 5 in history of finisher.
Top 3,
top 3, exactly. But when you look at what he had to do as a player, not a whole lot of leadership.
Yeah.
So you got LeBron and you got another veteran, Kevin Love. Now he has to be the leader, and that's not really who he wasn't a leader in Boston.
No, I think
was
he
terrible
really
in Boston.
tried.
Exactly, he tried.
He really tried.
And then he didn't really like that, and he's not a leader in Brooklyn either. So if you only have one guy, like, it was sort of brought in the fact that all these guys are supposed to be leaders for each other in the team.
Right, yeah.
And I felt like most of it fell on the shoulders of Durant only because Harden was a little bit beat up and hurt. And Harden went in thinking, okay, Durant's going to be one to get most of the carry. I can do some of this other stuff, but don't have to be the main guy.
Yeah.
And then it sort of fell on him to be the main guy when Durant got hurt and Kyrie. So look, the Nets are just a mess.
Yeah, that was a huge mess.
But I feel like having Durant there right now makes it even worse, considering the fact that they have two really toxic personalities in Ben Simmons and Kyrie Irving still there.
It's great on paper,
Exactly.
like all their play styles, but like it will never work.
No, for sure.
And it's like 80% Ben's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I really got sidetracked from my point. You can tell
you're
we're
good.
Phillies fans because we're like we shit on
jumped
Ben
on
Simmons
Simmons.
for like
for
10
sure.
minutes. Yeah, I don't think he's gonna get traded. I think he's gonna stay there for
Durant
at
or
least
Simmons?
Durant.
Yeah.
For at
Yeah,
least
I
most
agree.
of the
Yeah.
season.
I agree with that.
And like it really bothered me as like a Philly fan. Like everyone was like, "Oh, let's bring him here," but like, "Oh, we're gonna be like destroyed for like 10 years later
Right.
because we're gonna have to give all our nice young guys and like however
bunch
many
of
picks we have
picks,
left because
right.
we gave
Right.
so many away already."
To the Nets, which
Yeah,
you
we
don't
don't
want to
even
give.
really have
And that's the
any.
whole thing too. That's not talking about. Like the NBA, it's different than baseball or football, where you play teams in your division a lot. But the Nets, you're still going to play more because they're all in the Atlantic Division.
Yeah.
Than any other team. So you don't want to give up so much capital to a team that's so close that you're going to have to play in the playoffs as well.
Yeah.
So I think the Sixers have to be a little bit. They'll be very careful. I don't think they're going to make the trade, but that's why I think it was
it's not.
kind of irrational for fans to be asking for
Yeah.
that,
And it's
because it's
like-
not
yeah.
thought about like
They're
that.
going to jump the gun once
Exactly.
a Durant type player demands a trade. People are always creating the hypotheticals that
Right.
their team gets it. So
He's gonna gut any team he goes to though if he goes to
you think
any team.
Durant?
Oh yeah, like if
I think if he goes to Phoenix, that would be a really good mix.
That was the other team that I was kind of thinking about, but the issue
Who
is
did they
now
give
that
up?
Aiton is kind of gone, because that was been the guy
This is-
Aiton to trade.
I think that, like what I was saying earlier, how Sean Marks is doing the Morey way of handling this, it might actually come back to bite him in the rear end a little bit, because I think if he holds on to Durant to the deadline, and let's just say Durant plays and everything, and it's super toxic, they're not winning games, and Durant's like, yeah, no, I'm out. You're trading me. And he is like, none of this BS with 5 first-round picks. No, you're trading me for the deal that you can get before the deadline. I'm out of here. Or I'm not coming back, I guess. I don't know how that would work, but
Yeah.
I think that if Durant comes back, I think it won't go more than the deadline.
Yeah.
And I think Phoenix should be the team to jump on it, because they should be offering Bridges and they should be offering Ayton.
Yeah.
And they should probably throw in 1 or 2 picks for that. Maybe even a Cameron Payne type
Yeah.
player for just the contract. You know, sometimes you have to work out the money for the trade. So you might see a Cameron Payne type player. You know, who else? Like a Cam Johnson too. You might. But yeah, I think Phoenix should hop on that, because when Durant is going to get traded, I think it'll inevitably come. It's just a matter of when. Phoenix should be the top team to go after him, because that core of Booker, CP3, and Durant, that's a championship trio.
Yeah, I mean,
without a
my
doubt.
only concern is if you trade Ayton, you're trading your starting center.
Mm-hmm.
And in
Well,
the West,
Aiden's gone, but
right, like he's going to be gone.
Ayton?
Oh, wait,
he
no,
was
he
going to
isn't
get traded.
gone. Yeah, he
right,
almost
that weird.
did.
Yeah, within 24
Okay.
hours, they basically asked for him back. But I think that trading your starting center won't hurt you too much in the West, because there's not a whole lot of teams with great centers that are in a position to win.
Yeah.
The Jazz were basically it until Gobert got traded. But in the
let's
East,
not talk about Gobert.
Right,
I'm
right.
gonna
Yeah,
just
yeah.
dismantle his
But
whole game.
I'm worried that if you ask for Durant, you have 3 great guards, yes, but what if C3 gets... So I think that when you trade Ayton, you have to worry about the centers in the East if you get it that far to the finals, where you have either Embiid, Hassan Whiteside for the East, or for the Heat. So either way, you're going to have to be playing a tough center. So having only 3 guards is going to be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, the only thing with me is I fall on the side of the fence of Ayton is just so replaceable. I
That's
think he's
true.
a little bit overrated. I think they definitely paid him too much. I would have let him walk at that price. He's a great player. Don't get me wrong. He rebounds really well. He's a pretty good defender, and he fits their mold of guards where CB3 and Booker need that rim roller. He does that really well, but that stuff is replaceable
That's
for me,
true.
honestly. Like, if you get an athletic big who's really tall, you can develop him into that to fit an Ayton role. And I think that if they can look to move Ayton for a Durant, I think they should hop on that, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I think that covers all our topics today. I just want to end by like talking about our Instagram page. So you should definitely follow us on there because we're going to like put all our updates for like episodes, and we're actually making it really audience friendly. So you could our DMs are going to be open, so you could submit us like fan takes, like topics you want us to cover. We could do polls on there and then like review the information we get. Yeah, go check the page. It's going to be at Whistle Throwers on Instagram. Yeah, you'll be up to date with us and you'll be able to be featured on the show. Just check like the pinned post for like all the rules just to make sure you're good in that sense. That felt awesome. First episode.
That was really good.
That was good.
Can't wait for the second one. We have a special guest coming. So yeah, that'll be awesome. But we'll see you next time. Peace out.